Welcome to the Sacred Heart Share-A-Thon on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. Today, we are live on the air from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., asking for your financial support and sharing the great work of various ministries, authors, speakers, clergy, and local radio hosts that impact our local Charlotte community. Carolina Catholic Media Network is 100% listener supported, and we need your financial support to continue broadcasting the truth of Jesus Christ. Call 1-800-857-2909. That's 1-800-857-2909 to make your tax-deductible pledge. Operators are standing by right now to take your call, or you can donate online at carolinacatholicmedia.org. Thank you for your loyal listenership. We hope you enjoy this special Sacred Heart Share-A-Thon program. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very special hour of the Carolina Catholic Media Network Share-A-Thon. My name is Bill Snyder. It's wonderful to be with you, and I want to encourage you to give us a call right now. 1-800-857-2909 is the number for you to call and donate. This hour we have a wonderful Knights of Columbus hour for you, and so I'm going to introduce you to two wonderful people. Ray Haywood, obviously I'll let you do the introduction. Ray is joining us here. He is the co-host with me of The Remnant. So Ray, I'll let you take it away and introduce Bob.
Thank you, Bill. So my name's Ray Haywood, and Bill and I, along with Stephen Thomas, have a men's show on the Saturday men's block. It's at 5 o'clock. It's called The Remnant, the Remanaged Show. It's very good. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. So when David Papandrea discussed with us about doing a Share-A-Thon, I'm all into this Carolina Catholic Media because I believe in my heart that our children, the next generation, media is going to be the way that they connect. So if we don't place good media out there for them, if we don't place it in the schools, into Belmont Abbey, into every avenue so that they know that there's a place where they can go to find truth, then we're not doing our jobs, because it will be the way that they connect. So in preparation for the Share-A-Thon, David, Bill, and I were trying to find ways of getting people to support us. So right on the back of the St. Thomas Aquinas bulletin was Bob Gordon, for the Knights of Columbus. He's a benefits advisor, and so I reached out to everybody that was on the back of the St. Thomas Aquinas bulletin that advertised there. But Bob was one of the people that took me up on it, and we're both Knights. We know each other from a past meeting that we attended together where he was coming to speak with us. Bob actually has 8 parishes. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
8 parishes that he covers. So why wait? Let's get into it. Welcome, Bob.
Hey, thanks. Good to see you. How are you?
Good.
Hello. How are you? My name is Bob Gordon, and I am a Fraternal Benefits Advisor, also known as a field agent for the Knights of Columbus. And what I thought I would do today is, kind of give you a little history, a little education on what the Knights of Columbus does. The Knights of Columbus is a tremendously huge Catholic organization, but ironically, there's a lot of Catholics out there who kind of know sort of heard of the Knights, but don't really know what we do. They may go to church, they see these guys wearing their shirts, their pins, and they sort of heard of it, but they don't really know what it's about. I run into this all the time. But what I thought I might do is give you sort of an abridged history lesson. And really, what I'm going to talk about today is almost mirror image of what I do when I meet with, Catholic gentlemen for the first time, and just educate them on the Knights and the different things that we do. So if it's okay with you guys, maybe I'll just give you a short history lesson, and I promise it'll be short. But our founder is Father Michael J. McGivney. Father Michael McGivney had a parish, St. Mary's Parish in New Haven, Connecticut. Knights were founded in 1882. This is actually our 140th anniversary, so it's kind of neat that we've been around for 140 years. It's mind-boggling, actually. So with that being said, in the New England and New Haven area, and really all along the East Coast, and as most of us know, there was a whole lot of immigration going on, and you had a lot of families, young families, coming into America. because, the streets were paved with gold, right? So everything was going to be wonderful when they got here. And a lot of the immigrants were Catholic, of course, coming into the New England area, New Haven area, and settling in the area where Father McGivney had his parish. Coincidentally, well, actually not coincidentally, that's also where the Knights Columbus headquarters is, in New Haven, Connecticut. What a lot of these gentlemen were coming in, young families, 25, 23, maybe a young wife, a couple of little kids, toddlers, and a lot of these guys were coming into the country. They really didn't have a lot of education. Not all of them, but a lion's share didn't have a lot of education, a lot of skills. And what they didn't know is they were coming into a hugely anti-Catholic environment. And a lot of people don't realize that. So these were the times when people were settling to the New England and New Haven and many areas up the East Coast where, the signs in the windows were Catholics need not apply. And so they came in, forget about the streets being paved with gold. This was a hostile environment that they were coming into. They had no idea. So what wound up happening is these gentlemen, these young men, if you will, wound up getting the only jobs that they could, which, based on the fact that they didn't have a lot of education, a lot of skills, they wound up working in factories and coal mines and just really jobs, very low-level jobs with very, very hazardous working conditions. So mind you, it's the late 1800s, and needless to say, healthcare and technology is not where it was today. So the common cold or a flu could get these men gravely ill and actually have them pass away. And that started to happen a lot. So what was happening is these guys were getting these really hazardous jobs. They were the sole breadwinner because their wife was home with their children. And they would get sick, and they were passing away, And so what started to happen was Father McGivney, would get a knock at his parish door, and he was a poor parish priest in New Haven, Connecticut, and he'd open the door, and and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but this is the abridged version, mind you. But he'd open the door, and there's this widow, hypothetically with a baby in one arm, three at her feet, saying, "Hey, Father, can you help me? My husband passed away." And he didn't have any money. He was a poor parish priest. This went on for a while. And of course, as a priest, or as anybody would, he wanted to help, but he just didn't know what to do. So we really believe that God brought Father McGivney this challenge. Father McGivney was one of 8 children, and during his time in the priesthood, he actually encountered a similar situation because while he was in the seminary, his father passed away. And he had to leave the seminary for a while to go home and take care of his mother and his younger siblings, just to get them back on their feet, so to speak. So he did that, and then obviously he went forward and finished, the seminary school and becoming a priest. So this went on for a while at Father McGivney's, parish of St. Mary's. So he eventually had an idea that doesn't seem like rocket science today, but what he did eventually was he just had a meeting. He grabbed about 24 guys, and he had a meeting in the basement of St. Mary's Church, which I've been to. Looks like the basement of a church, no frills, 4 walls and a wooden desk. And he talked about, with these 24 guys, what was happening. And all they really did was the good old-fashioned pass the hat around routine. But mind you, it's the 1800s, so it might have been a nickel, a dime, a quarter, or maybe $1, I don't know. And what that produced was maybe a $5 or a $10 bill that he could go to that widow with and say, "Hey, here's something." Mm-hmm. And that didn't save the day, but you know what? It solved a couple of problems temporarily and gave her time to come up with plan B, if you will. So she was able to, we can't bring her husband back, but she was able to stay in her apartment, pay the rent that month, put food on the table, keep the children home from going into an orphanage, which is what would have happened, and more importantly, or as importantly, hold on to her faith, right? Because all these different things happening to a young widow, it's very easy to bypass your faith because of all the things that are going on to you, financially. And that is really how the Knights of Columbus started. That's the very infancy of the Knights of Columbus. Something that I'll talk about later that you may be aware of is the Knights of Columbus is also a large insurance and financial company. And arguably, that was also the start of an insurance program. It wasn't called that yet. It wasn't called the Knights of Columbus yet at the infancy of it. But if you think about it, if you have life insurance with a company or any company, well, what are you doing? You're paying a few dollars every single month for your premium. And if the unthinkable happens and somebody passes away, you get this large check, for the spouse or for the surviving benefit. So arguably the insurance program and the Knights of Columbus were kind of created around the same time at this simple, very humble meeting. And that's really the beginning. And this is a story that I tell to all my new members when they come into the Knights of Columbus, just because I need them to realize that what a faith-based, humble beginning this thing really was, and how revolutionary it was at the time for Father McGivney to come up with this. So since then, and I say this tongue-in-cheek, we've grown a little bit. So the Knights now, here we are 140 years later, has over 2 million members. And what you may or may not know is many churches have councils, Knights Columbus councils. So council number 1, needless to say, is St. Mary's in New Haven, Connecticut, where Father McGivney began. And now we have north of 20,000 councils worldwide. The lion's share in the United States and Canada, but we do have presence in virtually every other country in the world as well. So the Knights is quite a large company. I think Father McGivney would be very proud. I don't know that he had aspirations of this becoming so big. But the whole thing was really just to protect Catholic families and widows and children financially, so they can hold on to their faith. And he was really just trying to grow his parish as well, So, and it's really that simple how this began. But it just spread like wildfire is what it did. And so it started off in New England. And like I said, now they've got, a little north of 20,000 councils worldwide. And so that's, any questions on that, though?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is what I feel about the Knights of Columbus. The heart of the Knight is community.
Yeah.
So what you just described is that parish priest, that poor at the time parish priest, answering to his community and gathering men in a way that supports community, something that maybe we're not doing so good right now.
Well said. That's spot on, and that's kind of the whole reason why we exist, So, and that speaks to, community speaks to, the pillars of the Knights of Columbus are charity, unity, and fraternity. Those are the first 3 degrees, if you will, of the Knights of Columbus. And then we have what's called the 4th degree, is our degree of patriotism. But charity, first and foremost, is the whole reason we exist. And charity is not necessarily only financial. It could be in terms of man hours and community. And, if you go back to those times when those different men were helping out that widow and going to her house and maybe, helping build the, beds or benches, I'm just ballparking here,
Right.
but, all these different things count. And that's kind of what we do now. So each church, virtually every church in the country, quite frankly, or at least in the North Carolina area, most of them have a Knights of Columbus council. And what each local council does, and let me back up, so each local council, it depends upon the size of the church, but it could be 50 Brother Knights, could be, I have councils that have over 700 Brother Knights, and everything in between. And what these councils do, when you join the Knights of Columbus, what the Knights of Columbus does is raise money for charity, first and foremost. That's why we exist, to help protect widows and children. And that's a big deal, and it really helps a lot of people. So what we do once you become a Knight, what we're doing is, you meet, first of all, to be a little selfish, you meet a ton of great people, you make a lot of friends, it's a lot of fun, but more importantly, we really help out the community, we bring people in, and it's not just for men, it's for families, so it's not just about, only the Catholic men, but it's about their families as well. And we have our meetings every month, as each council does. And arguably, we're really just kind of talking about two things at those meetings. And if you boil it down, it's sort of, well, how are we going to raise some money for charity? And then who are we going to give it to? So that's the umbrella thought. And by the way, that money is not only given to Catholic charities either. It's given to all charities. So it's not like, even though we're a Catholic company, it's not like every dime we raise only goes to Catholic charities. It goes to all charities that need it. But the individual local councils, as I mentioned, there's north of 20,000. For the most part, they're raising anywhere, depending upon the size of the council, those councils are raising anywhere between 10,000 and 100,000 a year for local charities, for the most part. So it's quite special what we do. But
So I could tell you, over at St. Thomas Aquinas, we're reaching into our community. We're trying to reach into that younger generation of fathers. And the way that we're doing that is we're supporting the Troops of St. George. And through helping the community in reaching into those young boys and the fathers, we're hoping that we could gain the fathers to come and become knights. How do we engage with those younger fathers? How do we bring them into this sense of community? It seems like we're talking a lot based on community. So as a knight, everybody thinks, oh, I don't want to commit to going to the meetings. It's not about the meetings.
Right.
Not for me, anyhow.
Right.
I mean, the heart of the night is centered on community. And when you are a knight, whether you make meetings or you don't make meetings, you got the emails coming in. So with those emails, you know what's going on in your community. And if you plug into those emails, you're plugged into your parish. And then you know the needs of your parish. You see how your parish is being supported. So, but a lot of our younger fathers, they don't know this because they don't find value in my own view of the younger fathers. I see them as very insulated. They stay amongst a group of families. They don't really become part of the Knights. This is a challenge for us. So what we are doing as the Knights in St. Thomas Aquinas is intentional to reach into those young fathers. Because how do we do this? So one of the other things we did at St. Thomas was we gave out a book. It was an introduction to the Rosary. And this is something you could actually look up on YouTube, because Deacon Martin Rickard, he did a video invitation to the young parents, especially the father, to place this invitation to do the Rosary into the mother's hand and to pray with the children. That doesn't mean that the father doesn't pray with the family, of course, but this is just an introduction to prayer. And this was a gift that we gave out. It was beautiful because Sister Donna was the faith formation, religious instruction over at St. Thomas. When I attended the Mass for the communion, it was beautiful watching all these young children receive communion for the first time. But afterwards in Aquinas Hall, what happened was, as the family came in to receive the certificate, Sister would bring them over to me, and I would give them the book. I would show them in the front of the book the message from the Knights and also from the Fraternity of St. Joseph Men's Group. We partnered on it together, and we showed them how we care for their family and we're encouraging them. Personal invitation. Our pastor, Father Matthew Codd, always says the way we reach into the next generation is through personal invitation.
Well said. You said something that really resonates. Plug into the parish. It's just a great phrasing of it, but that's exactly what the Knights does and will continue to do. And it's really typified by events. There's always things that we do, and you're right. It's hard to get, young men who are busy with their families, busy with their work, and sort of the mentality, without even knowing about the Knights, is saying, I don't have time for that, I don't have time for that. And one of the things when I sit with people who aren't knights, but just to educate them on it, is just to let hey, but once I talk about what we do, but the reality is I think a lot of young men have this vision of the Knights of Columbus like it's a full-time job. And oh my goodness, I don't have time to do anything.
My perspective as well.
To your point, you don't have to make every meeting. You can't. I kid with guys, and I'm like, when you're a knight, you can't get fired.
Exactly.
So, but one of the ways I've done a decent job at getting people to join is say, look, we've given you some history. We're educating you on what we do, raising money for charity and different things. You do what you can, when you can, if you can.
Amen.
That's all. You can't make a meeting, okay, but you have to realize that when you belong to the Knights, we're doing so many different things to raise money for charity. You just described a very good event. Not necessarily a charity driver, perhaps, but still a wonderful Catholic event. But just in general, what many people who aren't Knights have been to Knights events because there might be a fish fry. There might be a pancake breakfast. Usually these things are right after church or before church. Cupcake sales, football pools. The list goes on and on. And what happens is we get more and more people by accident, they go to 5 o'clock mass hypothetically, and then, hey, the Knights is having a pasta dinner after church. And, and that's where we'll kind of always say hello and, maybe have a conversation with a couple of young gentlemen, or quite frankly, you don't have to be young. That speaks to getting younger, of course. But that's kind of where it starts.
Lenten dinners, right?
All that stuff, So there's so many different things that we do, and those things, ironically, so the best, for lack of a better word, the best recruiting tool for us is our events where we're actually raising money for charity during those events. So when people come to our fish fry, our pancake breakfast, our Lenten dinner, and they're paying $5 for a family, for $10 for a family, whatever the amount is, they're actually almost already participating in Knights of Columbus events because that $5 or $10 bill is going to charity.
Going back to the parish
right,
mostly.
Yeah, and not to mention the amount of money we give to the church.
Maybe we can be intentional in something. Maybe you could mention the 8 parishes that you cover, and maybe we could send this episode out to those 8 Grand Knights.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ask them
and
to
I know
share
all of them
it
as well, sure.
Ask them to share it with their membership for them to understand how important it is for us to build that sense of community in the conversation we're having.
Well, I'll tell you, you mentioned something earlier, and many of you, I'm on the back page. I have an advertisement on the back page of most of the localized Charlotte and Lake Norman area parish bulletins, and I also have an ad that runs in the Catholic Herald every other week that all Catholic families get on the west side of North Carolina every other Friday. But I'm only one of about 15 agents / benefit advisors in the state. So it's not just me. So whether you live in Raleigh or Fayetteville, this is not just a localized thing, because again, we're statewide and worldwide. Specifically, the churches that I take care of, St. Thomas Aquinas, of course, which is your parish, right?
STA Parish strong.
St. Thomas Aquinas, as we just mentioned, St. Mark in Huntersville, Holy Spirit in Denver, St. Teresa in Mooresville, St. James the Greater in Kannapolis, Sacred Heart in Salisbury, St. Matthew's in Charlotte, of course, and St. Philip's in Statesville. Those are my specific ones that I service, and I probably, if you add all the Knights up in those 8 parishes, is probably just short of 2,000 brother Knights in those parishes and growing. Speaking of youth, and we always want to get younger, and one of the initiatives that the Knights of Columbus started about 2 years ago, and it was partially born out of an effort to drive younger membership, and it was also partially born out of COVID, is online membership. And basically, and this has exploded in a good way, but you can actually join the Knights of Columbus online now, and basically all you have to do is go to our website, which is kofc.org, And once you go on there, you'll see a little kind of blue button that says join. And it probably takes about 10 or 15 minutes to do it. And once you do that, you're what's called an online member, right? And that has a lot of benefits to doing that. It's sort of a foot in the door, if you will, and if you want to take it to the next level and join a local council and really get involved, we can help you with that. And that's easy to do. But the online membership that I just mentioned, again, it's kofc.org, and you just go to join, and it's free. You just put a code in, and the code is actually my name. Not my full name, but RGORDON. So R Gordon.
Yeah.
And that takes it from being $30 to free.
Oh, wow.
And then what happens is once somebody does that, I get an email that lets me know that you joined online, and usually I'll come, give you a call, come by, and give you some information on the nights, but we've had so many people who joined online, and I mean thousands, and then eventually they realize, hey, there's a local council right here that I go to at St. Thomas Aquinas. Maybe I'd like to be a part of that, so maybe that's the dad coming in, or maybe the dad's got a couple of sons that are 28 and 26 like mine, Of course, my sons are both knights, but they had no choice.
Mine too.
It was mandatory. Yeah, there you go.
Squires, then knights, before 19.
So it is a, let's face it, this is a family organization, but that kind of describes sort of a broad brush overview, if you will, of what we do. I'll stop there for a second, but I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add to that, Ray.
No, I'm just... it's important that we focus on preparing well the next generation of Catholics. The Knights do it, but also Carolina Catholic does it. And we really need your support so that we can hand on the truth of Jesus Christ to our children. In every place that we are in our diocese, there should be something that shares something about Carolina Catholic. So if you're out there and the next generation matters to you, call that number, 1-800-857-2909. Don't think the next person's going to make the call. You have to make it for us. And donate. If you can, donate monthly. No matter what it is that you could donate monthly. Because we are intended to help that next generation. But getting back to the Knights. So when I was a young father, as a matter of fact, my wife, Natalie, was pregnant for the first time. I was coming out of church, and a brother Knight who also worked with me, I worked for the Department of Sanitation back in New York, and I was coming out of St. Christopher's Church, and my wife was pregnant, and he was in the back, and I'm sure you've seen this many times. He was signing up people to become Knights of Columbus.
Sure.
So he says, "Hey, are you a Knight?" I says, "Of course. My father, my grandfather, my uncle, all Knights."
Had no
Knights
choice.
Knights were men that we looked to aspire to.
That's right.
It's a shame that the next generation doesn't look to the Knights of today
Not as much
to
as we'd like.
aspire to.
We'll get back to
So he points at my wife's, at my wife, and she's pregnant, obviously, and he says, "Do you have insurance?" And at that point is the first time that I thought of the family in front of me. A gathering stage. I'm so involved with,
Sure.
Building in my physical world. I'm not thinking about that type of aspect.
Right.
So, and it was a simpler time back then. And, today we're more focused on these things. It wasn't the same back then. So it wasn't in it was in the peripheral.
Wasn't on your radar screen.
Not even in the
Wasn't
peripheral.
on your radar screen,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, I moved that thing. I'm flying, Bill.
Yeah, you're fine.
So that would make you a typical young father,
Yes.
or soon to be young father.
I
And,
thank that guy for doing that, because I did. I joined. I wound up speaking to someone like yourself,
Right.
but I just want to lead in with how important it is the way that the Knights approach this, where we don't have underwriting, we don't pay for advertising, all these. When you go out to like these other insurance places to gain term life, there's so many things to know. And I'm sure that you can fill this in for our younger brothers and even older brothers like myself who haven't looked at this for a long period of time.
Yeah, and it's sort of the third part of what I'll talk about today, and what I always talk about when I meet with families and whether they're Knights or not, just to let them know. So the first part was the history that we discussed a little bit. The second part was what the individual councils do, and the third part, of course, is the financial aspect of what the Knights Columbus offers. So if you don't know, the Knights Columbus is a tremendously large and yet Catholic and private insurance company as well. The Knights has assets north of $30 billion. We have the highest AAA rating from financial companies that exists in the world. But yet we're a private club, right? So our products, if you will, are only for Catholics, and of course Catholics who become Knights Columbus members. And then once a gentleman joins the Knights, whether it's online or whether it's in person or however he wants to join, he's actually eligible for some of the financial benefits that we offer, not just for himself, but for his wife and for his family as well. And basically what we do is, as you might imagine, and it still shocks me how many people I meet with who don't know that we do this, but it also doesn't surprise me because it's not like we advertise it so much. You will not see any Knights Columbus television commercials. Yeah, you'll see my ad in the Herald, you'll see my ad on the back of the Catholic church bulletins, but that's obviously completely geared to a Catholic audience, mm-hmm. right? So you won't see any Knights Columbus television commercials simply because we'd probably be wasting a lot of money doing that because we're only for Catholics. But what we do, and it's a huge wealth management and retirement planning company, and what we do is offer life insurance, whole life, term life, universal life. We offer long-term care insurance, which is future nursing care insurance, which is actually the single number one risk to retirement funds that exist today. Nursing care is amazingly expensive everywhere. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is that we kind of call it the 70-70 rule. And what that means is 70% of everyone over 70 will eventually need some sort of care, nursing care, mainly because everyone's living longer these days. Right. And nursing care is tremendously expensive. So there are policies that will actually pay you for care. So that's what long-term care actually means. We also take care of retirement planning in the form of IRAs, Roth IRAs, annuities. And annuities are basically a way to set up guaranteed income for life so that you never run out of money in retirement. And last but not least, disability insurance, which is basically paycheck protection. So I always tell people, hey, if they're working somewhere and if you became disabled and you couldn't work, well, what would happen? Well, usually that's a big financial hardship. So those are really the four things that we get into. We also have a whole separate group of mutual funds from a wealth management standpoint that we can offer as well. Mm-hmm. So the products that the Knights have are incomparable, and we're typically less expensive than every other public company out there. And that's no disrespect to public companies, other insurance companies in the world, but it's just that we're not paying dividends to stockholders because there are no stockholders. The Knights is a private company. We are an insurance company. But what we do is we give away wild amounts of money to charity through our insurance program. So case in point, I spoke before about the different amounts of money that the local councils give away. Some of the smaller councils might be $10,000 or $15,000 a year. Some of my larger councils give away north of $100,000 a year, and that's to local charities. But through our main office in New Haven, Connecticut, and through the insurance company, the Knights also gives away over $200 million a year, which is astonishing. So basically, when you have products with the Knights of Columbus, you have them first and foremost to protect yourself and your family, and to, take care of your family financially and yourself. But it's real neat hitting the pillow at night knowing that you also just contributed to some of the larger checks that we cut through our main headquarters. Case in point, we just gave over $10 million to the Ukraine, the refugees there. And we all know what's going on there.
Right.
No disrespect to other life insurance companies, but there's not many that are giving away these types of money to charitable situations like that. There was millions of dollars for COVID relief, Hurricane Katrina. These are $1 million checks that our Supreme Knight, Patrick Kelly, and previously Carl Anderson oversees. And these are the big checks that go out. These are not the $100 bill to, the local widow who needs a ramp on the back of her house for her wheelchair. That's more coming from the local council money, from that, your council, St. Thomas Aquinas and others like it might provide. But the larger checks to charity, to that $200 million number, right around there, that's coming from, some of the financial products that we have. But the fact of the matter is that because we're private and we're not spending all this money on marketing and all this money and paying dividends to stockholders, and on average, probably 10 to 25% less expensive than other products than other companies for better products. That's a blanket statement. It's not to the penny, but I've rarely, had another company be less expensive than we are for products. Very rarely. And if that did happen, it usually wasn't the same product. It wasn't apples to apples. So it's just a special situation. And it all ties back into, the knock on the door that Father McGivney got from the widow saying, Father, my husband passed away and, my kids are going into an orphanage and I'm about to lose my apartment. Can you help me? And that $5 or $10 bill that he gave her, it didn't save the day, but what? Gave her a little time. Maybe she paid, like I said earlier, she paid the rent that month. Gave her time kept the kids home. Maybe she got a job. Maybe she had time to reach out to her family, as opposed to you're out on the street and your kids are in an orphanage, and we can't bring your husband back, but you get the idea. So it's just really it's just amazing, and I come from a previously corporate environment. I've been a Knight for over 30 years, but I've been working for the Knights, almost 10 years. And when I first started with the Knights, I didn't know everything I'm mentioning today.
Right.
And yet I was a Knight 20 years prior.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know about all these different things that we do and the charitable aspects and all the financial products that we offer. So it was a revelation to me. And I remember when I first joined and I went up to agent school, if you will, in New Haven, Connecticut, and I walked out of there blown away. I was like, whoa, this is the real deal. And boy, are we special.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm just beating my chest over the Knights, but obviously I'm proud of where I work and what I do. And it's just an incomparable company.
Yeah. Father McGivney, what he did was he planted a seed. And he started something, and he, nurtured it. And look at where it is today.
It's astonishing.
It's the same thing we're trying to do with Carolina Catholic. All these local programming that we're doing is especially towards the youth. There's so many things that are going on through Carolina Catholic that has the audience of the youth involved.
Mm-hmm.
And, just the same way that we as older men Knights are trying to engage with those younger fathers to get them to become part of the community, the Carolina Catholic is doing the same and trying to reach into the formative years, reach into the schools, Belmont Abbey, all these different avenues that we're trying to reach into. Same type of mindset as Father McGivney. This is a very young apostolate, Carolina Catholic. So we really need the support of people. I mentioned earlier a phone number. You could also go right on to the website of Carolina Catholic. Bill, could you tell me what that website is?
Yeah.
Exactly?
Yeah, so very easy. It's just carolinacatholicmedia.org.
Yeah.
Go right there.
And, whether you're listening to us live or you're listening to us through YouTube or some other media platform, consider to support that future generation that we're trying to place good intent into. And
Absolutely, and I mentioned it before, but a lot of the things that I've talked about, the history of the Knights, what we do, and yes, the products. If you just go to the website, which is kofc.org, you can really learn a lot there. It's a very easy website to navigate. You can learn about the history. Father Michael McGivney. There's a great book called Parish Priests that I ran out of. Otherwise, I was going to bring you a copy today. It's an easy read. It's about 100 pages, a paperback, excuse me. And it's just kind of, pretty much the story of Father McGivney and the Knights. And but you can go onto that website and kind of, do your own homework, so to speak, as well. But yeah, there's a lot of, we call it a vineyard, if you will.
absolutely.
And there's so many, people out in the vineyard that I know that we want to bring back to the church, and part of that would include, hopefully, introducing them to the Knights Columbus to help them, their families.
Absolutely. So many people feel as though, why is this happening? What's this ministry? And I always tell people that we all have a piece of the vineyard that we work in. And each of us have a different calling to it. So we're called to different things. Knights of Columbus should, if you're a Catholic man, as far as I'm concerned, you should be a Knight.
Hands down.
Because
Hands down.
you should be part of your community. And that's what the Knights does so well. They do community. You see them everywhere. You see them at every function. There's nothing good that goes on, or I should say this in a different way. There should be nothing that goes on in a parish that has a council that council is not involved in. And if you have a good Grand Knight, that's what's happening, and that's what you're seeing.
Couldn't agree more. Well said.
Well, this has been it's just a great hour. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank
for,
you.
Being with us, and Ray as well. Believe it or not, we actually have another Knights Hour coming up next. We have a double helping of the Knights. So that's awesome. We have Joe Salamone and his group will be on with us as well, coming up next on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. So I'm going to just take us to a little break here for EWTN. We'll go back to the network, and then we'll have them on in just a little bit. But once again, thank you so much to Bob Gordon and Ray Haywood for sharing all about the Knights of Columbus. Just great stuff, and know we have more Knights headed your way next hour.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You
are listening to the Carolina Catholic Media Network Sacred Heart Share-A-Thon. Operators are standing by right now to take your tax-deductible pledge. Call 1-800-857-2909. That's 1-800-857-2909. Or donate online at carolinacatholicmedia.org. We now rejoin network programming already in progress.